Hi. Now, if you've been around human design for a while, you've probably come across terms like color, tone, and base. If you've never come across them, this will give you a chance to really understand where all this is coming from. And if you know about color, tone, and base, I'd like to share this because yesterday I was dealing with a couple who are involved with a program I run called Master Design, where I work in depth with people, one person, or in this case a couple, once a week over 6 to 8 months, so that they really get an in-depth experience of what human design is in their life. You know, that they come to grips with, yeah, there's all this theory and you can learn all this great stuff and it's really incredible and amazing and in some ways distracting. Or you can take it and integrate it into your real life and see how it really works for you. And in that program, I really work with people and help them get clear on what they're experiencing by relating whatever we're talking about, whether it's human design or anything else, but everything about their design, we make it relevant to what they're experiencing that week in their life, or what they're planning on doing in developing their business, or increasing the intimacy in their relationship, or anything, you know, improving their golf swing. And I'm not joking, we do that, or I've done that in the past. So I wanted them to get a grasp. They were asking about what is the environment that would really suit them. And there's a part of human design that really hones in on that, really focuses in. And I felt that I wanted them to understand the whole background to this and relate to it experientially. You know, they were emotionally defined for a start, so relating to it is really relevant for them. And so that the ideas behind it became more than ideas. It made sense. And what I loved was the way it came out yesterday was really refreshing, even for me, and new and fresh and simple. It was common sense, it really made sense. So I'd like to share that with you again and hopefully make some real sense out of color, tone, and base, what they are, where they come from, and why they're important. So let's just step back. You've got your human design chart, and that shows you a map of your design, how you are designed to operate in the world. And you've got centers and channels, and you've got gates. Now, each gate is an energy that's a part of what makes you up. It's a component. If you think of a car, then, you know, the front left wheel is a component, and then you've got the right wheel, the front right wheel, and then you've got the steering wheel, and they're not the same. All of these are components that make up the car. So you've got these gates that are these 64 energies that you can either have switched on and defined to operate in a very specific way, or not switched on and open and receptive to receiving that particular energy from the people and the energy and the environment around you. So some of them are switched on to do things very specifically, and others of them are open to receive that energy. And then you get to sort through it and decide which of what you receive is going to support you doing what you're designed to do, and you can let the rest go. Ideally, that's what happens. It's not what people tend to do, but that's the way it's designed to work. And these gates have sort of 6 variants within them, 6 ways of operating 6 different ways each one of them can operate, and that's called a line. Okay, so put simply, a gate and a line enables you to get into very specific detail about how you are wired up to operate, where you're switched on to operate in a very specific way, and where you're open to whatever's going on around you. And it relates to these 9 energies that you need, that we are now designed to operate with. Now, that's what you can see when you look at a human design chart. And let me show you that just so you can relate to it very, very specifically. Hold on, I'll pull this up. Okay, here we go. So that's a human design chart. And you've got these 9 centers, and you've got all these 64 numbers. And they are various aspects of the energy of each of those centers, and they're the gates I'm talking about. And when you look down here, you can see in this particular thing, which is a map of what's happening now, you've got a gate 16 is activated in a very specific way, particularly the line 1 aspect of it. So that gives you a grasp of what I'm talking about. And the thing you can see is that's what you can see. But there's a lot more going on under the surface. Just like this, the computer that I'm recording this video on, I can see that. But if it's not plugged into the wall and receiving electricity, eventually it'll just fade out. It'll run out of power and just turn off. So there's this whole thing going on under the surface that really turns you on. It's the power within you. Now here's where it gets interesting. Human design really puts a big emphasis on how you're designed to make decisions, and that's called strategy and inner authority. And if you follow your strategy and your inner authority to make decisions, which is all outlined in that chart, you can see it there. As long as you can read the chart, you can identify it very easily and quickly. If you follow that, you're going to have a great time. It's going to make really significant improvements in your life because you'll make better decisions and you'll operate the way you're designed to. So you won't find yourself fighting yourself or doing things that aren't yours to do. You know, like I watch a bit of sumo wrestling here on TV because we get a channel from Japan. And that's fine. I can watch sumo wrestling. But if I said I'm going to be, by the way, next week I'm going to be not just taking up sumo wrestling, fighting it, actually going into the ring at the top level, you just all laugh at me because I'm not designed to do it, obviously. Well, when you know your strategy and what type of person that you are, how you operate, and what's your strategy, and how do you make, what's your strategy for making decisions, and how do you make decisions, bang. You know what you're suited for. And it's obviously not sumo wrestling in my case. But there are other things that I'm really, really good at. And everyone's got that. Everyone's designed to do something very specific and to receive the support to do it. However, if you're not plugged in, you don't get the full potential. You don't get to truly realize your full potential. You do sort of accidentally, you know, but you really don't. I suppose the simplest way to put it is you really don't know what consciously what you're really capable of. And knowing that, being aware of that, for some people who are ready for this, it's just like, and I don't mean ready because they're better than, it's just, hey, I've gone as far as I can go with this and I want to go further. You know, it's like, and this is the right time and energy for me to do that. Again, strategy and inner authority. When you're ready for that, going deeper, going into it more, can really make a big difference. It can enable you to nurture your brain so that your brain realizes its full unique potential as a one-off. It doesn't just operate like everybody else's. You have your own unique nuances and abilities, and it operates exactly the way. And that, what's important for that is your digestion gets the nutrition that it needs to feed the brain, so it happens that way. Also, you can identify what environment suits you. Like a sumo wrestling ring, unless I was a judge or whatever, wouldn't suit me. You know, but there are environments that really do suit each one of us, that bring out the best in us. And each one of us has a unique way of looking at the world, a perception. And also, that perception makes us aware of very special things. Things that you might say not only we are aware of, but we're aware of them in a way that is utterly unique to us. And sharing that perspective and that awareness with other people can be very enriching and valuable, and a very good use of our thinking processes in our brain. You know, particularly when they're retired from running the show of making decisions, then they can like really start doing what they're designed to do, observing, measuring, creating stories about things, perceiving, being aware, and then sharing that perception and awareness with other people. Good stuff. But to get there, there's two options, really. It boils down to one. Follow strategy and inner authority and don't worry about it. And the better and better you become at making decisions the way that works for you, otherwise known as strategy and inner authority. Making decisions the way that works for you, the more that will naturally click in when it's needed. But it won't be something that you're making, you know, it's like occasionally I can throw a bit of paint on a piece of paper or something like that, but you're not becoming an artist, you're just doing it when you need to. But when you become aware, when it's right for you to really tap into that, and you go, I'd like to digest properly. Hey, that's a good thing. It'd be good for my health. Yeah, it's also very good for cleaning out congestion that you've got in terms of just bad digestion. You know, but it also gives your brain what it needs to do its unique thing. It gets the chemistry going that allows your brain to operate at its best potential or very close to it. And therefore, you begin to think uniquely and observe uniquely and appreciate life in a unique way that really resonates with you. And then you can realize that there's certain environments where you're at your best. And when they turn up, don't reject them, you know, embrace them. And you've got your own way of looking at things and your own unique awareness. And it's like, I can take this by being conscious of those things. For some people, when it's right for them, you know, many people, they don't need this because getting the best out of their life, strategy, inner authority, knowing their type, living true to their design, that's enough. It's more than enough. There are people out there I know who don't know anything about human design, but they live it to a large, large degree. They've never sort of lost it. Whatever the circumstances were in their life, They never got distracted from it, or if they did, they just found that doesn't work, but this does. You know, they got there experientially, you might say. But there are other people like myself who, being more conscious, plugs us in a way that brings out the exceptional in us. And this is where colour, tone and base come in, particularly colour and tone. They can be incredibly helpful for certain people to bring out the exceptional. Not just have a great life or good life and make good decisions, great decisions, but just bring out, when it's appropriate, when it contributes, when it helps other people, bring out the exceptional. And how does that work? Well, we live in a field of energy. Now, there is energy that we cannot describe, but that's not very useful to us. The best description of the energy that we live in its rawest form in science is called neutrinos. You might say that's the smallest unit of energy, smallest way of relating to energy that we have. So in human design, they talk about the neutrino field as being as close to pure energy as you get. But it's on that nice edge between, you know, it's relatable, it's in this world, it's not, it's just purely imagination, but there's no substance to it. Neutrinos do have substance, i.e. they discovered after a long time they do have mass. And when you form as a human being, rather than a tree or an elephant, when you form as a human being, that energy needs to get harnessed, tapped into, and converted into form. It has to become material or able to, it creates a material body. You know, you have to create a body, but it also has to bring the energy with it for that body to be alive and vibrant. Because when you're dead, you've still got a body, but it's basically on its way back to the earth. So, the way the founder of human design, Ra, described this was he said, in order for energy to become substance, it has to, and I understand this because I'm trained in science and I've worked with crystals in depth, it has to crystallize. But it crystallizes as consciousness crystallizes. And it's the interaction between crystallized consciousness and the flow of the neutrino energy that sets up the energy for everything else to happen. And so here I've got a crystal that a friend of mine, Lawrence Stoller, who's a genius at crystal cutting, I mean, a great artist in Oregon. And we put this together one day. I brought a bit of broken crystal from Australia and I spent a weekend with him, and this is one of the things we cut. We did a lot of crystal cutting, but this is one of them, and it's a beautiful piece of crystal. And what's happening is the neutrino flow, the energy comes in and interacts with what Ra called a crystal of consciousness. Now, there are two crystals of consciousness. What these are consciousness that's taken at least some form. Otherwise, you couldn't call it a crystal of consciousness. Consciousness is like, oh, well, whatever. But a crystal of consciousness implies that consciousness has form. And there are two of them. One, because we have a physical body, it has to come out of the earth. So we need a piece of consciousness from the earth and a piece of consciousness from somewhere else. Because there's something in us that comes together with our body, and the two of them together work beautifully and we live. And then when that something goes, the body goes back to where it came from, the earth. And so to describe how this happens, there's this crystal of consciousness comes out of the earth. And it brings with it a thing that they label in human design a magnetic monopole, something that pulls things together. Now, because it's come out of the earth, that crystal has to have something, because it takes a little piece of what holds things together, because it was a part of the earth. And that crystal of consciousness, with that what they call a magnetic monopole, that thing that pulls things together and keeps things together, that forms our body while we're in the womb. And it comes to completion 88 days roughly before we're born. And at birth, a crystal of consciousness not from the earth. It's the best way I can describe it. Not from this physical universe. Well, maybe it comes from up there or the stars or something, but I doubt it. It comes and joins and creates our personality. And that's our birth chart. You might label it soul or, you know, personality. It's a good word. You know, it's like, it gives us, we have a certain body, but we also have a unique personality in that body. Now that's common sense. And when that body and that personality come together, you get a human being with a personality, a body with my personality. You can see it in my eyes. You know, some people say they can. I often look in people's eyes and you can see a lot about them in that. You can feel something about them that's there, that's not there. I've been there when a person's died, when my mother passed away, and I know the difference. You know, she's there and then she's gone. And the body's there. Her body is there, but she isn't. And anyone who's been there in a situation of death knows that there's that sense of they're there and then they're gone. Now, it's the interaction of the energy that's here all the time, the neutrino energy, the relationship between that and the one or the other of the crystals of consciousness that creates colour, tone and base. It's all base, tone and colour. And here's how it happens. You've got this energy field hitting something that has some substance, some form. It's crystalline. It's not just theoretical, it's got substance. That's what crystalline means. And it goes, and it hits the surface. And when it bounces off that surface, when it interacts, when it relates, when it reflects off that surface, like as I move the crystal around, you'll see various lights and things reflect off the surface. That energy, that energy that is created by the surface of the crystal interacting with the flow of neutrino energy, the flow of life, creates another resonance, a reflection, a new energy. And that's called base. And that creates the basis for that particular energy. And then it moves, the neutrino stream moves, it can enter into the crystal and it moves through the crystal. And it forms another resonance because of what's going on. It's the difference between, the first interaction. Do you want to go on a date? Yeah, I'd love to go on a date. That sets the basis for it. Or you want to go on a date? That sets a whole different basis, even if they agree. It's like, uh-oh, right? I'm going to have to take this slowly, or maybe they don't really want to do it. I've had that experience, and someone went, and I said, no, don't worry about it. It's like, that isn't a good foundation, right? So that's what base is. But tone is going on the date. It's the energy moving through the crystal and what happens there. And that sets a certain, literally, tone. It gives the interaction of your consciousness with energy. At first, sets the foundation. As you interact with it further, it sets a tone. And then the way you finish the date or the way you leave the crystal colours the whole interaction. If it ends up romantically, or it ends up beautifully, or it's just that you're both happy, that colours the rest of the relationship. If you're glad it's over, that colours where you're going to go from there on. And so the interaction of your consciousness with the flow of energy creates colour, it creates a foundation, a base, a certain tone, and colours it. And that makes those three energies together give you access to some of the power of that neutrino energy field. In other words, you've got energy from the source of energy. You've tapped into the energy field, your consciousness has tapped into the energy field and harvested energy for itself, base colour, base tone and colour. Now, that every single gate in your chart and every line there has a colour, tone and base. Because if those, let me show you on the chart. If these activated gates, let's pick 13 here, the one I'm pointing at now. If that activated gate does not get fed like a tree, doesn't have a root, isn't tapped into the energy field, it's still activated, but it's like a computer that isn't plugged into the wall. The battery's eventually going to run down. And then you'll seek other sources. When it's plugged into the wall, you can keep renewing yourself over and over and over. So the most practical thing is How do I stay plugged in? Simple. Strategy and inner authority plugs you in. That's why it's so important. It doesn't just help, it does help you make great decisions. And it plugs you in, because base, tone, and color can only get drawn to the magnetic monopole when you're actually operating as who you are. It's almost like they're looking for home, or they're looking for their owner, or they're looking for the gate that they want to plug into. But if you're acting out as someone who you're not, you know, this is Christopher Power. Oh, my name's Darryl Reeves. Well, they go, oh, okay, well, this obviously isn't for you. I had this check for $10 million for Christopher Power. It's like, no, sorry, can't give it. Sorry, I shouldn't have even said that. Off you go. It's looking for you. And if you're not showing up as you, practically, that's what happens. It doesn't make it across the gap. The color doesn't get to the line, because you're not operating as yourself. And there's a disconnect. Now, that eventually leads people to desperately seeking reassurance from the world around them, or looking for energy from the world around them. And through our open centers, which are designed to receive, we just suck up all the conditioning we can get without discriminating whether it's good for us or not, whether it actually supports us doing what we're designed to do or not. In other words, we make a lot of bad decisions. When you tap back into strategy and inner authority, you start making good decisions, which means you start tapping into color, tone, and base. But it's all very much, I'm just plugged in, but I'm not really that conscious of it. And if that's all you need to do what you're here to do in life, no problem. At least you're plugged in. And it's like, I don't know why this strategy and authority works so good, but it's so, that's, people who've really lived their design experientially will tell you this. It's amazing. I can tell you that. It just really opens your eyes to what you're truly capable of and what you're designed to do versus what you think you're designed to do. And sometimes that's a big adjustment. For a lot of people, it is. And so many things that you think aren't the way you think they are. But the more you open up, the thing that encourages you is not that you've got to get it right. That doesn't encourage anybody. It's like, this works, this works, this works, right? So you just, hey, this, wow, now I understand why I'm that way, why this way, why that person's that way, whatever. Because it makes sense and it works in the real world. And so that's great, you know, being motivated to do that. But the secret is that you're plugging into the energy of life itself via color and tone and base. And it adds that extra energy and that joy. Not only do you make good decisions, but you've got the energy and the timing right. Particularly, you've got the energy and you're doing it at the right time where you're tapping into the right energy to do it. It's like all of a sudden life becomes far more elegant. And you realize you're capable of doing things that only you can do, and you can bring them to the table confidently. You start to trust yourself, you start to trust life, even when it doesn't go the way you think. You develop this ability to be open to what is happening rather than what you think, and to really get the best out of what is happening, or let that teach you how to operate even more effectively than you've been operating before. And a lot of that is because you're tapping into colour and tone and bass. Now, for some people, tapping into that consciously really helps too. And it enables you to not just live a great life or a good life, but an exceptional life. And there are certain areas that Ra outlined, specifically things that are opposite each other, like the sun and the earth in your design, and the sun and the earth in your personality, and the nodes. He zoomed in on what they can really do for you in terms of making you far more, to embrace your uniqueness consciously, because the outcome of that is you can consciously share that with the world around you. It's called outer authority, where you get to share your view on life and your awareness on life. And your brain supports you rather than fills you up with anxiety and worries and stuff like that. And the environment, you know what suits you. And so you bring a unique perspective and a unique awareness to the table, which enriches everybody who's willing to listen to it when you're ready to share it. And so being conscious of that is sort of part of, not the end game, but it's a step up, it's a step beyond just living strategy and inner authority and having a great life. If your strategy and inner authority says, you know, I want more, I want to go deeper, it's there, colour, tone, bass. And this is where you can really plug in. And the old saying that the answer lies within you, what you are looking for is within you. This is where you can become truly plugged in to getting what you need from within you. So you're not so dependent. In fact, relatively independent. But at the same time, you're receptive to the world around you, appreciative of the world around you, able to decide what really supports you and let the other stuff go and let it support other people. It's what emerges out of this is you really start to enjoy your life and see the incredible gift that you've been given. Now, just strategy and inner authority will get you that experience for sure. But for those of you who just want to really finesse it, you know, the artists, I've mastered my strategy and inner authority. So what's beyond mastering my strategy and inner authority? Well, there's the artistry of living your design. It's bringing out the exceptional in you. And if you've got the time and the inclination, the urge, the inner authority going, yeah, not only that's for me, not up here, but in your inner authority, yeah, that's for me, and I'm ready and willing. Not, oh yeah, I want to do, you know, it's you cannot do it from your mind. You can work all this out there, but living it, when that part of you goes, I'm up for that. Exceptional, that word resonates with me. It has for me all my life. If that resonates with you, then consciously exploring colour, tone and bass, either in the 4 areas that Ra explored in incredible depth, did amazing work with, but in other areas as well. And that's where human design becomes both, it's the biggest trap and the biggest revelation. It's like, it gets so complex that you know why strategy and design is so cool. Because if you're going to go into an area like this, you need strategy and inner authority. Your mind can't cope. It's like the difference between playing the World Cup on the field and watching it in the stands, you know, in soccer or football or any sports game, you know, American football, Australian football. You know, it's the difference between playing it on the field and all the nuances and really appreciating it from the stand. And it's not better or worse. It's just there's such a level of being able to understand the game differently. You know, if you've played a sport particularly at a level of excellence, there's something you know about that. Or if you've done artistry, painting or music, or whatever it is you're gifted at. You know, if you've done a consultation, I've been doing them for 35 or more years, and you've done a consultation at a level of excellence or an exceptional level, there's something you know about that. The people who watch or just come along for a consultation don't understand. And when you find that area that you want to put your heart and soul into, colour and tone and base, being conscious of them may really just help you finesse and plug in consciously and to discover what you're really, like for instance, I'll just use one simple quick example to wrap this up. I have colour 3 and tone 2 in my personality nodes, which means, and I won't go into it in complexity, but it means that when things are uncertain, part of me just, you know, uncertainty, which a lot of people avoid, often brings out, really opens me up. You know, it's a place where I've got a very unique perspective. I can be very active and in a sense, take the lead. You know, and everyone's confused. What do we do? It's sort of what I do in my work. You know, what do I do with my life? Oh, go and see Christopher, you know, have a consultation. You know, he'll help you. When you're not certain, I can help you find certainty, because uncertainty is comfortable. I know how to look at it and work with and perceive it in a way that I can then give advice or share my perspective, literally, of how to turn uncertainty into an asset. So there are certain gifts we all have that bring out the exceptional in us. And that's what colour, tone and base really offers you. So hopefully that was helpful, and I enjoyed sharing that with you. See you again next time.